Hey everybody, it's your old pal Ken, aka Sleaze Grinder. I don't know if you know this, you probably don't, but we have a new podcast. It's called the Heavy Leather Record Club. If you've been following me at all, you know that I used to have a TV show called The Heavy Leather Topless Dance Party, which then morphed a few years later into the Heavy Leather Horror Show, which is still happening. It's also a podcast now. It used to be a TV show, but we have this new podcast, the Heavy Leather Record Club, which is all about, obviously, records, vinyl, and new music. And I'd love for you to listen to it. It's really fun. It's got a great cast. A lot of people from the old Movies About Girls shows on it. And of course, my old pal, Chris Heavy Necker Cardone is on it. I think you'll really like it. So the link is down below for the latest episode. So please listen, subscribe. You know, honestly, I don't really care that much if you listen. Just want you to subscribe. So it, looks like I'm still happening, like I'm still relevant in this world. So anyway, on the show, we talk about, new releases, and we also talk about new records to our collections. So I thought once a week I'd get together with you and I'd show you some of the new additions to Stacy and I's record collection. By the way, I haven't figured out exactly where I should be doing this in the house. So the background might change here and there. I'm in the living room at the moment trying to find a nice, decent spot for, the lighting and whatever. So I'm working on it. Anyway, let's get to it. I'll show you the 5 records that I picked up recently. And, I'll tell you about where I got them and all that kind of stuff. How much I paid for them. I'm a huge fan of disco. I know that can be shocking to some, but I always have been. I realized later on in life that the whole anti-disco thing, disco sucks thing, was just a whole ruse perpetrated by the patriarchy to keep minorities down. Look it up. Anyway, the future the disco promised was just incredible. We never got there. We may never. Anyway, I went to Stereo Jacks recently. They got, obviously, somebody sold their disco collection to the Stereo Jacks, and they were, trying to offload it. So everything was, pretty cheap. I got a couple of really nice pieces from that. This is one of them. It's not the greatest. It's not the greatest piece of music, but I really like the cover. Now, disco covers are obviously, known for being sexy, and there's a lot of topless disco covers, not a lot of bottomless ones. So that's what we got here. We have Andre Carr with Disco Frisco. 2 songs, Island Man and Mr. Hitman. This is a Italian studio project, and it's not the most bouncing disco I've ever heard, but back is just generic. But for cover purposes, it's pretty great, right? I would like one of these. I would love one of these shirts too. Anyway, Andre Carr, the Andre Carr Orchestra, Disco Frisco. It won't make my top 100 greatest disco records of all time, but still pretty good. I think I paid $3 for it. Now, there has been, plenty of fake rock stars out there. Movie stars playing rock stars. Going all the way back to, remember when Richard Pryor did the death metal thing back in the day? Anyway, remember when Gina Gershon did? This is a long history of it. But out of all the fake rock stars out there, Juliette Lewis has always been my favorite, and to me the most authentic. Juliette and the Licks was a fantastic band that existed in, around the early to mid 2000s. She toured. We saw her twice. She was great both times. Did a very kind of like somewhere between Iggy and, kind of punky, and which is really great. And, all her records were done like right in the middle of the CD switching to iTunes era. So there's no vinyl happening at the time. There's been little labels that have been putting out her records. You gotta think fast. You gotta, have your eyes and ears open to get them. Last year I got You're Speaking My Language, which is my favorite record of Juliette and the Licks. And just recently, there's another label. It's a UK label. I got it from Greece, though. I don't know how it works over there. And it was, because of that, shipping and all that, it was pretty pricey. But still, very, very happy to have Juliet and Licks 4 on the floor. Sounds great. Look, it looks beautiful. Hot Kiss was the hit, so to speak, from that one. If you like high energy rock and roll, you don't get much more high energy than Juliette Lewis. And if she ever tours again, please do catch her, because what a show. Love it. I've been trying to get some of Accept's early albums. I had when I was younger. I'm sure many people my age have been through this. When you're younger, you move around. You don't want to drag all the stuff with you. In the 80s, vinyl was your music delivery system. And I moved 13 times, in my estimation, from the ages of, 18 to, 29. So I got rid of my record collections many times. And so, now that I feel at least like I'm in my permanent home, that, I'm trying to get all that stuff back. I was a big Accept fan starting from, I think I'm first heard them on probably on WERS here in Boston on the heavy metal radio show. I heard Fast as a Shark, which is one of the very first speed metal songs. It blew my mind. It's from Restless and Wild. And so, from there, Balls to the Wall came out after that, and, huge. And, I kind of traced back from there. But it's been a while. I haven't had any of these records in a long time. So, got a copy of Breaker, which I believe is number 3, third record. Great songs on it. Son of a Bitch is on it. Midnight Highway, of course, Breaker is the title song, and it's probably the biggest rocker on here. And, they were still finding their footing. They weren't a speed metal band yet, but they were on their way. And, man. And really, one of the classic, to me, heavy metal record covers of the 80s as well. It's got the barbed wire and everything. Very cool. Now, I bought that at a record show, Dedham or somewhere. I think it was like $25 or something, which seemed fine with me. I don't know why the lighting goes in and out. I'll figure that out. This one I picked up at Stereo Jacks. I think the same time that I got the disco record. It cost me $15. Well worth it. Because it's not like a record that you're going to find every day. Here it is. Hammer presents Dracula with Christopher Lee. So what this is, the A side is, of course, Christopher Lee reading a selection from Dracula, the Bram Stoker book. And on the B side, there are selections, music selections from various Hammer movies. Now, I've been a big fan of Hammer movies and Christopher Lee and Dracula and all that since I was a kid. In fact, when I was very small, by the time I became aware of culture, it was the mid 70s. This came out in 1974. And I'm telling you, the culture was wild. In 1974, 1975, 1976, everybody was obsessed with Bigfoot, with aliens, this whole ancient aliens thing. The aliens were here, before we were, and all this kind of stuff. And Bermuda Triangle was very big, and Search Of was on TV. And, there was a lot of horror in the culture. And, Hammer movies and Famous Monsters of Filmland, Creepy Magazine, all that stuff was just bursting out everywhere. And, I'm sure that's because that's what I gravitated to. I kind of thought like, oh, this is what's happening in the world today. And I was excited for it. And I was too young to experience any of it, really. I mean, even the Hammer films that I saw on TV were, all cut to shreds. I didn't know until much later that they were mostly about cleavage because they weren't showing a lot of that on TV. So, what a disappointment when I got to adulthood and it was 1991 and it was, grunge and plaid and gray skies and heroin and not a whole lot of cleavage. But anyway, very happy to have this. It sounds great. It's a really interesting record. Look at it. I love it. Beautiful. Every time I show up a record, it fucks up the lighting. Ah, what are you going to do? And finally, this week, so I'm a big Alice Cooper fan. And I love all eras of Alice Cooper. Some of them are harder to get on vinyl than others, obviously. The classic era, pretty easy to get. A little harder to get definitely much harder to get some of the more modern stuff, like the, second Welcome to My Nightmare sequel, for example, very difficult to get. So, the later stuff, because it's, smaller and smaller batches. Now, one of the more difficult suites, if you will, of Alice Cooper's discography these days is the heavy metal comeback. He did, he's called it a comeback, but he hadn't really gone away. He did 4 albums of new wave music, right? So he did Flesh to Fashion, Special Forces, Zipper Catches Skin, and Dada, which are all great records. Different than what, the 70s Alice, obviously. But, Alice was always chasing whatever the trend was. Still is. And so he did the new wave records for a while. And then, he had his ear to the ground. He knew that heavy metal was happening, and he decided to make a heavy metal comeback. And he did 4 records as the, heavy metal Alice. Raise Your Fist and Yell, Constrictor, Trash, and Hey Stupid. All records that I think are great. And I found one of them recently at a record show. And it's this one, which is Constrictor, which is the second one of the comeback, if I remember correctly. And Not His Greatest record is, he's always been known to do some cheesy stuff. And this is one of the cheesier ones. It's got Throw My Gorilla on it, for crying out loud. But still solid. And I think if you remember anything from this record, it's probably He's Back, The Man Behind the Mask, which was the theme, or at least on the soundtrack, for one of the Friday the 13th. I forget which one. 6 maybe? 5, 6, around there. And I don't know. I'm really happy to have it. It's got Teenage Frankenstein on it, which I think was another hit. It might have been a video at the time. Constrictor, Alice Cooper. So there you go, everybody. There's 5 for Friday. Recent pickups from our collection. I would love it if you listen to our show. It's called the Heavy Leather Record Club. We have a new episode every week. We'll tell you everything that's new that's coming out, and we'll let you know what we've been into. And we'll give you some recommendations. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time on the Heavy Leather Record Club.